It was supposed to be an ordinary Sunday. The Jones family, Mark, his wife Linda, and their 2 kids, were seen laughing on their porch just before sunset. By morning, their house was empty, dinner half-eaten, and their car still in the driveway. No signs of struggle, no footprints leaving the yard, just silence. What happened inside that house has haunted the town ever since. On the surface, the Jones family looked like the picture of happiness. Mark Jones was a respected engineer, known for his calm nature and steady hands at the construction site. His wife Linda was a local art teacher who filled their home with paintings, laughter, and the smell of fresh cookies. Their children, Emma and Ryan, ages 10 and 7, were bright, cheerful, and well-loved at school. They lived in the small, peaceful town of Willow Creek, a place where everyone knew everyone. And nothing ever went wrong, until one night, everything did. It was Sunday evening, just past 8 p.m., when neighbors last saw the Jones family outside their white 2-story house. They were barbecuing in the backyard, music playing softly, the kids chasing fireflies. It was a normal, peaceful night, or so everyone thought. By Monday morning, the house stood dark and quiet. The newspaper still lay untouched on the front porch. Mark didn't show up for work. Linda missed her art class, and the children never arrived at school. At first, people thought they had gone on a trip, maybe a family emergency. But when no one could reach them by phone, concern turned into panic. Officer Daniel Hayes was the first to arrive at the Jones residence after a neighbor reported something strange. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the house looked untouched. No broken glass, no overturned furniture, nothing out of place. The dinner table was still set, plates half filled with food, glasses of juice barely touched. The living room lights were on, and the television played static. It was as if the family had simply stood up and vanished into thin air. But the deeper Hayes looked, the stranger things became. The family's car was still parked in the driveway, keys hanging by the door. Their phones, wallets, and Linda's purse were all inside. Upstairs, the children's beds were unmade, as if they'd gone to sleep and never woken up. On Emma's bedside table was an unfinished drawing, a picture of her family holding hands in front of their house. The only thing missing from the home was the family themselves. Word spread quickly through Willow Creek. Reporters, neighbors, and even curious onlookers crowded around the house. Everyone wanted answers. How could an entire family vanish without a trace? The police began to comb through every inch of the property. Sniffer dogs picked up a faint scent near the backyard gate but lost it by the woods behind the property. There were no footprints, no signs of forced entry, and no blood. Detectives checked security cameras around the area, but none showed the family leaving the house. The last footage captured was from 8:42 p.m., Linda waving goodnight to a neighbor across the fence. After that, the cameras went black. Power failure? Maybe. Or something worse. By the end of the first day, the entire town was gripped by fear. Parents locked their doors, children were kept inside, and everyone whispered the same chilling question: where did the Jones family go? By sunrise on Tuesday, the Jones family's disappearance had become the biggest mystery Willow Creek had ever seen. Police cars lined the quiet suburban street, their flashing lights painting the white fences blue and red. News vans arrived soon after, their reporters speaking in hushed tones, trying to make sense of what had happened. The neighborhood that once felt safe now pulsed with unease. No one knew if the Joneses had run away, been taken, or simply ... vanished. Detective Laura Simmons was assigned to lead the case. She had a reputation for being calm, patient, and unshakable in the face of chaos. Standing in the middle of the Joneses' living room, she studied every detail, the untouched dinner plates, the faint smell of barbecue still hanging in the air, the flickering television. No forced entry, she murmured, scanning the doorframe. No signs of a fight. Whatever happened here, they left quietly or were made to leave. Forensics teams swept through the house for hours. They found fingerprints everywhere, belonging to the family, and a few frequent visitors, but nothing unusual. No strange DNA, no blood stains, no signs of struggle. The only odd discovery was a muddy handprint on the back door, lower than an adult's reach, almost child-sized. Emma, or Ryan's, or someone else's. The print didn't match either child. Detective Simmons started with interviews. The first to speak was the next-door neighbor, Mrs. Dawson, who claimed she'd seen something that night. "I remember hearing laughter," she said, "and then, around 9, I thought I heard a car door slam. But when I peeked out, I didn't see any cars leaving." Another neighbor, Mr. Miller, said he'd heard the Joneses' dog barking loudly just before midnight, but the Joneses didn't even own a dog. The search expanded quickly. Teams combed through the woods behind the house, drained a nearby pond, and even checked abandoned buildings within a 5-mile radius. Nothing. No clothing. No signs of a struggle. Not even tire marks leading away from the house. It was as though the family had stepped off the face of the earth. Then came the first lead. 2 days after the disappearance, a local gas station clerk came forward. He claimed he saw Mark Jones late Sunday night, just before closing, buying a gas can and a pack of matches. Surveillance footage confirmed it was Mark. But what was he doing there alone at 11:50 p.m.? The timeline didn't make sense. Neighbors swore they saw the entire family together at 8:45. Could he have gone back out after everyone was asleep? If so, why? Detective Simmons replayed that footage again and again. Mark looked calm, not scared. He paid in cash. But as he turned to leave, something in his expression caught her attention. He looked over his shoulder, almost like he was expecting someone behind him. The press started spinning wild theories, secret debts, affairs, a staged disappearance. But none of them fit the evidence. Linda's bank account was untouched, the kids' backpacks still at home, and no one had used any of their credit cards since that night. As the days turned into a week, the pressure on Detective Simmons grew. The mayor wanted answers. The media demanded progress. But she knew the truth hid somewhere inside that house. And late one night, while reviewing the police photos, she noticed something strange in Emma's drawing, the one on her bedside table. It showed her family holding hands, yes, but behind them, barely visible, was a dark figure drawn in crayon. A shadow with no face. Was it just a child's imagination or a clue no one had noticed? Detective Laura Simmons couldn't shake the image from her mind, the faceless figure in Emma Jones's drawing. It seemed so small, so easy to overlook, but something about it felt deliberate. She enlarged the photograph of the drawing on her computer screen. The shadowy figure wasn't random scribbling. Emma had drawn it with careful strokes, darker than anything else on the page, standing just behind her family. The more Laura looked at it, the more she felt the weight of a child's silent warning. The next morning, she returned to the Jones residence. The investigation had slowed, but the air around the house still felt heavy. Inside, everything remained untouched, as if time itself refused to move forward. Laura entered Emma's room again. On the wall above her bed were several other drawings, colorful scenes of school, birthdays, and sunny days. But one, half hidden behind the bookshelf, caught Laura's eye. It showed the same faceless figure, only this time it was closer to the children. She felt a chill crawl down her neck. Did Emma know someone was watching them? She whispered. Forensics had already gone over the entire house, but Laura ordered another sweep, this time focusing on hidden corners, attics, and crawl spaces. While the team worked, she went through the family's digital records again. Mark's emails, Linda's phone, the kids' online activity. Nothing seemed unusual, until she noticed a message Linda had received 2 weeks before their disappearance. It was from an untraceable email address, with the subject line, "You can hide forever."
Odd.
The message contained only one line: "I see your happy family. Enjoy it while it lasts." The email was deleted minutes after it was opened, but the forensic trace remained. No one had mentioned this before. Laura's instincts flared. This wasn't just a random threat, it was personal. Later that day, she visited Willow Creek Elementary, where Emma and Ryan went to school. Emma's art teacher, Mrs. Parker, remembered something strange. About a month ago, she said, Emma stopped drawing happy pictures. She started sketching dark shapes like shadows watching from the window. I asked her about it once and she said, "He's back." When I pressed her, she got quiet and asked if I could close the blinds. Laura's heart pounded. Did she ever say who he was? Mrs. Parker shook her head. No, but she seemed scared every time we talked about it. That night, Laura drove back to the Jones house alone. The sky was dark, clouds heavy, and rain began to fall. She parked in front, grabbed her flashlight, and walked up the creaking porch steps. Inside, She stood in the living room, the beam of her light tracing the walls, the couch, the family photos. Then she saw it, muddy footprints near the back door, faint but fresh. Too small to be Mark's, too large to be Ryan's. She followed them to the hallway, where they stopped abruptly near a floor vent. Kneeling down, she lifted the vent cover and shined her light inside. Something metallic glinted back at her, a small keychain with a faded letter E. Emma's. But there was something else. A folded piece of paper wedged between the vent slats. She carefully pulled it out and unfolded it. It was a child's note, written in shaky handwriting. "Mom says he's watching us again. Don't tell Dad." Laura froze. The house suddenly felt colder. This wasn't an accident or a runaway. Someone had been watching the Jones family long before they disappeared, and Emma had known it. The detective stepped outside, looking toward the dark tree line behind the house. Somewhere out there, the truth waited, watching, just as it always had. Detective Laura Simmons couldn't shake the feeling that the answers lay beyond the Jones family's backyard, in the dense stretch of woods that loomed like a dark wall behind the property. Locals called it Hollow Pine Forest, a place kids avoided after sunset. Stories floated around town about strange noises, flickering lights, and a man who lived deep inside the trees. But to Laura, this was no ghost tale. She believed whoever had been watching the Jones family had come from there. The next morning, she gathered her team and began a full search. The forest floor was damp, littered with fallen branches, the air thick and silent. As they moved deeper, one of the officers called out, "Detective, you need to see this." Laura hurried over. There, half buried beneath a pile of leaves, was a piece of fabric, a child's pajama sleeve, patterned with tiny stars. Emma's her pulse quickened. "Mark this area," she ordered. The team set up tape and started combing the perimeter. A few meters ahead, they discovered something even stranger. A small clearing with an old wooden shack, barely standing, its windows boarded shut and its door padlocked. It looked abandoned, but fresh footprints led straight to the entrance. Laura approached carefully. "Cut the lock," she said. The officer hesitated for a second, then snapped it open. The door creaked as it swung inward, revealing darkness and a smell of decay. Inside, the walls were covered with newspaper clippings, all about missing persons. Some dated back years. In the center of the room was a wooden chair, facing a wall filled with photographs of the Jones family, smiling, eating, playing in their yard. Every photo was taken from outside their house. A chill ran down Laura's spine. Someone had been spying on them for months, maybe years. "He watched them like a hunter watches prey," she whispered. She picked up a crumpled sheet of paper on the table. It read, "They belong to me now." There were also children's drawings scattered across the floor, some drawn in Emma's handwriting, others by someone else. They showed the same faceless shadow standing over the family, always closer in each picture. Outside, one of the officers called from behind the shack, "Detective, we found something." Laura rushed over to see a narrow tunnel entrance, covered by branches and leaves. The air coming from it was cold and damp. It looked recently disturbed. Without hesitation, she grabbed her flashlight and crawled in. The tunnel was barely wide enough to move through. The walls were lined with old bricks, the floor muddy. A few feet in, she noticed scratch marks, deep gouges along the walls, like someone had tried to claw their way out. Her breath quickened. "Oh my God!" The tunnel led to a hidden basement beneath the shack. Inside was a mattress, old toys, and food wrappers. Someone had been living here, watching, waiting. And then she saw it. Carved into the concrete wall were 5 words that made her blood run cold. "They're still here with me." Laura stumbled back, heart pounding. Who was he, and what did here mean? Was this a message from the kidnapper, or something worse? As her flashlight flickered, a faint sound echoed through the tunnel. A slow, dragging noise, like footsteps scraping through dirt. She froze. "Hello?" she called out. Silence. Then another step. Closer this time. The detective backed up, drawing her gun. "This is the police. Show yourself." Nothing. Just the whisper of wind through the trees above. Laura climbed out of the tunnel, her hands shaking. She looked at the forest one last time, dark, endless and silent. Whoever took the Jones family wasn't far. And now, she knew he was watching her too. Detective Laura Simmons didn't sleep that night. The haunting words carved into the wall, "They still here with me," played over and over in her mind. She sat at her desk, surrounded by evidence photos, drawings, and case notes. The Jones family's smiling faces stared back at her from the board, their happiness frozen in time. Every clue led back to that shack, to whoever had been living there. But there was something she couldn't figure out. How did no one in Willow Creek notice a stranger living right behind their homes? By dawn, she had a theory. She asked her team to pull old property records for the forest area. After hours of digging, one document stood out. A transfer deed from 1997. The name of the owner was Daniel Crosa, former handyman who had once worked on several homes in Willow Creek, including the Jones residence. He had disappeared 15 years ago after being accused of stalking a family nearby. No one ever found him. The case was forgotten until now. Laura's heart pounded. Could Daniel Cross have returned? And if so, was he the shadow Emma kept drawing? She immediately ordered a search warrant for the area surrounding the shack. The team began digging near the tunnel entrance, hoping to uncover more clues. Hours passed before an officer called out, "Detective, you might want to see this." Laura rushed over. In the dirt, half buried, was a rusted metal box. Inside were several items. A small bracelet engraved with the letter R, an old photograph of the Jones family taken from a distance, and a folded note that read, "She looks just like her mother." Laura's chest tightened. Her mother. She whispered. Back at headquarters, she dug deeper into Linda Jones's past. What she found changed everything. Linda's maiden name wasn't Jones, it was Linda Cross. Daniel Cross was her father. The handyman, the stalker, the man who vanished decades ago, he wasn't a stranger. He was family. The realization hit Laura like a storm. "This isn't a random kidnapping," she said aloud. "It's personal. He came back for them." Records showed that Linda had cut ties with her father after a violent incident when she was a teenager. He had been obsessed with keeping the family together and was institutionalized for a short time before disappearing. Laura pieced the puzzle together. Daniel must have found Linda years later, tracked her to Willow Creek, and started watching. The threats, the shadows, the drawings, it was all him. But the question remained. Where were they now? That evening, as the team combed through the last section of the woods, one officer shouted, "Detective, over here." Laura ran to the site. Beneath an old oak tree, they found a covered hatch, sealed with a heavy chain. It took 3 officers to break it open. A rush of stale air escaped as they climbed down into a hidden underground chamber. Inside were 3 small beds, blankets neatly folded, and shelves stacked with canned food. On one wall, children's drawings were taped up, new ones. One showed Emma and Ryan smiling beside a gray-haired man with kind eyes. Underneath, in childish handwriting, were the words, "Grandpa takes care of us now." Laura's hand trembled as she turned to another wall. There, scrawled in thick black marker, were the words, "They're safe with me. The world doesn't deserve them." She looked around the chamber. No people. No bodies. Just silence. The air was cold and heavy with the scent of earth. But there were signs of life. Fresh food, lit candles, and a small radio playing, faint static. Daniel Cross had been here recently, and somewhere deep in those woods, he was still hiding with the Jones family. Laura climbed back to the surface, her jaw set. "We're not done," she said. "He's alive, and so are they." The search would continue, but one thing was clear now. This wasn't just a disappearance. It was a man's desperate attempt to reclaim the family he lost, no matter what it cost. Rain poured heavily over Willow Creek. The night detective Laura Simmons returned to the forest. Her search team had already covered nearly every square foot of the area, but deep down, she knew Daniel Cross, the missing handyman, the estranged father, the shadow in Emma's drawings, was still out there. The underground chamber had proved one thing. The Jones family was alive, at least until recently. But where were they now? "Let's spread out in a half-mile radius," Laura ordered, her flashlight cutting through the fog. The storm made it hard to see. Branches cracked underfoot, and the wind howled through the trees like distant whispers. Every sound made the forest feel alive, as if the woods themselves were watching. After hours of searching, Officer Grant radioed in. "Detective, we found something about 100 yards east of the shack." Laura hurried toward the coordinates, her boots sinking into the muddy ground. As she arrived, the beam of her flashlight landed on a trail of footprints, small barefoot prints, leading toward an old well covered with wooden boards. The boards looked freshly moved. She knelt down, brushing away the debris, and peered inside. A faint light flickered below. "There's something down there," she said quietly. The team secured a rope and lowered a camera. The footage came back grainy, but it showed movement, blankets, cans of food, and what looked like human shapes huddled together. "They're here," Laura whispered. "They're alive." Moments later, she descended into the well herself, the cold air thick with moisture and dread. At the bottom, the narrow tunnel opened into a small underground room. And there, illuminated by her flashlight, sat Linda Jones, holding Emma and Ryan close. Their faces were pale, their eyes wide with fear and exhaustion. "Linda," Laura said softly, "you're safe now. I'm with the police." Linda's lips trembled. "He said he was protecting us, but the world outside wasn't safe." Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "He's my father, Laura. He said he forgave me. I didn't know he'd take it this far." Laura's chest tightened. "Where is he now?" Before Linda could answer, a voice echoed from the tunnel behind her, deep, tired, and hauntingly calm. "You shouldn't have come here." Laura spun around, flashlight trembling. Standing at the tunnel's edge was Daniel Cross. Older, frail, but his eyes burned with a strange mix of love and madness. His beard was long and unkempt, his clothes torn. "They were never safe out there," he said, stepping forward. "You don't understand. The world takes families away. I was just keeping mine together." "Daniel," Laura said firmly, keeping her gun lowered, "you've hurt them enough. It's over. Let them go." He shook his head slowly. "You can't take them. They belong here." With me, for a tense moment, no one moved. Then, suddenly, Daniel reached into his coat. But instead of a weapon, he pulled out a photograph. A picture of Linda as a little girl standing beside him. "She was my whole world," he said, voice breaking. "He said I was crazy, but I just wanted my family back." Tears filled Linda's eyes. "Dad, please. It's over. Let us go home." Daniel's face softened for the first time. He looked at his daughter, then at the children clinging to her side. Slowly, he nodded. "Home," he repeated almost to himself. "Yes, home." Then he turned, stepping back into the darkness of the tunnel. "Tell them I kept my promise." Before anyone could react, the ceiling above the tunnel gave a low rumble. "Move!" Laura shouted, grabbing Linda and the children as the tunnel began to collapse. The team pulled them up through the well just in time. A massive cavern buried the passage completely, and with it, Daniel Cross. Hours later, as rescue crews packed up, Laura stood in the rain watching the well being sealed. "No trace of him?" one officer asked. She shook her head. "No, but somehow, I don't think he ever wanted to leave." Linda and the children were taken to safety. Physically, they would recover. But the trauma of being hidden underground for days, protected by the same man who once loved them, would linger forever. Weeks later, when the Jones house was finally reopened, Laura returned to collect final evidence. On the kitchen table lay a note that hadn't been there before. It was written in shaky handwriting, "Families should never be apart." The ink was still fresh. Detective Laura Simmons looked out the window toward the forest. The trees swayed gently in the wind, and for a brief moment, she thought she saw a shadow moving among them, slow, quiet, and watching. The Jones family was finally safe. But the woods of Willow Creek would never be the same again.